Greetings, Newhammer, Middlehammer, and Oldhammer folks alike. I am OldGrumpyWolf, aka Lennon Midnight, and welcome to the Minibar Podcast. I'll be serving you up lots of awesome painting nerdiness, talking to other painters from around the web. Tonight we have a very, very special guest at the bar. He is the Ork Warlord himself that all the gits look up to and want to be. We have dear old Adrian 80 Wood from Games Workshop of the 1990s.
Hello, how you doing?
Nice. I'm stoked that you're on the show. No, I said 80, didn't I? Yes, 80. Yeah, there we go. I'm confusing myself in my own brain. So just I because of kind of the broad range of things here with the Newhammer folk. You were part of the 90s Games Workshop and White Dwarf staff. You were a prominent figure in the 90s. We us young guys, we absolutely looked up to you. I mean, you and the other cast of characters that worked on White Dwarf, you guys were just so amazing, especially I think it was issue 191 where you switched over to the new format.
Oh, a Fat Dwarf.
Yeah.
Yeah,
things...
Bear in mind that issue numbers actually don't really mean a lot to me because it's all a bit of a blur. And
I can imagine after doing a few hundred issues.
You know, from 1993, I was there for 5 years. So, then I'd had my fill and I moved on. Mm-hmm. So it was a good long time. Before that, I worked at Ladybird Books for 3 years, and that was a fabulous job.
Well, let's not go too far down that rabbit hole because I actually have that question for later. What I wanted to just with the Newhammer folks, you worked at Games Workshop. You were a prominent figure in White Dwarf, and when you guys switched over from standard White Dwarf to what you called Fat Dwarf, the magazine became a lot more expressive, a lot more graphic oriented. There was a lot more silly photos of you guys. Everybody kind of had their roster of photos that they would use for articles and stuff. So, you're part of Games Workshop history, but let's just jump right into lay questions. The biggest thing is, what got you into the hobby in the first place? Because, I mean, you adopted this really early on.
Well, it's an interesting one. I've always been a modeler and a painter. Probably more a modeler actually, because that dates back to my childhood. I used to build Tamiya model kits. I love them, and still, and I still think they're a fabulous thing. I went to art college and learned to be a graphic designer. Oh, okay. And I kind of got out of modelling and painting then a little bit, but after a while, a mate of mine, he started to run Hero Quest games, and he sort of said, "Why don't you come along? We're doing these Hero Quest games. It'd be really good fun." Mm-hmm. So I came along, and they were great. They were really, really good. But things happened which meant that I wasn't available on the nights when they ran their Hero Quest campaigns, and me and my mate Chris, Chris is a pretty important figure in my early gaming life, because we both went into we kind of went, we want to game together. Why don't we have a look and see what games we are out there that Games Workshop does? Mm-hmm. Something that's different from maybe something more science fiction orientated. So we went over from Loughborough, which is my hometown, went over to Leicester, which is about 15 miles away, 10, 15 miles away. And we went over to a bookshop that was there, and went upstairs, and there were all the Games Workshop games that were out at the time. Now there were a couple specifically that we looked at. One of them was Blood Bowl, which looked great. And
was it first edition or second edition?
Believe it was first edition.
Yeah, so it had cardboard cutouts instead of models.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, we looked at it, but we kind of went. But then there was also Space Hulk. And we looked at Space Hulk. Oh yes, we thought, yeah, that looks really interesting. And so we went, okay. So we slammed down our 30 quid. Get that 30 quid,
right,
for a complete game. I mean, you look back on it, you think, oh, that's a lot of money. That is 30 quid. Now it's like, you could times that by 5 minimum.
48 bucks, $50 like that gets you one Space Marine now.
Oh, I know, it's absolutely ridiculous. It's just just crazy. So we bought that. We took it home, opened it up, realised that it was because we were thinking it was more like a role playing game. Realising that actually it was a tactical board game. Really. Yeah. Great time! I absolutely loved it. Thought the models, and straight away we were kind of like, because we love Citadel miniatures. Straight away we were like getting, what was it? We were like buying extra metal Terminators, and then we were buying Space Marine captains because they look really cool. So we slammed those in, and then we realised, oh, actually you could buy some orcs and put some orcs in this. As well as the Tyranids, you could do all this stuff.
Yeah, first edition they expanded out to actually use orcs and Tyranids.
I'll do anything that we wanted, and it was really cool. And I mean, we were making this stuff up and making the rules up as we went along. I think we even put Eldar in there. We did all sorts, and they were pretty balanced. The games were great, so it must have been about a year. I mean, literally every week we were like playing out these games, and you don't just play one game when you play Space Hulk. You play like 3 or 4 or something like that. Because it's one of those kind of games, and absolutely loved it. To the point where we were kind of saying to ourselves, because we were looking at photographs in White Dwarf magazine, and I'm going, they're playing on tabletop and stuff. And I kind of thought to myself, oh, yeah, I like this looks interesting. How could we translate that onto using Space Hulk rules? So, well, we could, roll out a great big sheet of paper with like squares on it, and you could just play, and it was around that time that the Epic game, the second edition Epic game, came out, and I looked at this game and I thought, ooh, this looks cool. Now, I didn't realise at the time, and I haven't really talked about this much because I've done a few different interviews and talked about just in the last year or so. And the one thing that I didn't kind of sorry, I lost my train of thought slightly.
Oh, you're good. Space Hulk, orcs, Eldar.
Well, yeah, no, it's fine. It was the Eldar stuff, the Epic stuff. Oh yeah,
Epic scale.
But with the, I didn't realise that Epic scale was, as it was an Epic scale.
Yeah,
and you get all these boxes of miniatures, 300 models in this, and you realise that they're all like
4 millimeters,
absolutely 6 mil tall, and all this kind of thing. You go, oh right, okay, and
great marketing strategy.
Oh yeah, very good. But looking at the photographs, I think that the photographs looked absolutely amazing in the White Dwarf, and I thought, ooh, that would be an interesting thing to, it's the latest thing out. It looks really great, and I've just remembered the thing that I was going to say, and that is that talking to people at Games Workshop later on when I start to work for the company, is that when it comes to like wargaming scales, that actually Epic is you're getting closer to something that actually fights like a proper mass battle game.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at something like Epic, you look at something like 40k, and you look at the miniatures in 40k. Really, those miniatures are display models.
Yeah.
They would have been, and because they are the size they are, they really are made for collecting and painting to the highest possible standards. Not necessarily for collecting like huge great armies with like 3 or 4 squads in them and all this kind of thing, and 2,000 porters. It's not quite what they're really there for. And so what you call an army in 40k isn't an army. It's just like it's really just a handful of squads and some vehicles.
Yeah.
Whereas in Epic, you actually had complete mass companies.
Yeah.
Because it's small enough that your 6 foot wide, 4 foot deep table or 4 foot by 4 foot, or whatever you played on, really was massive. It was suddenly this huge surface that you could actually play your games on, and I thought, oh yeah, I like this. They did this battle report. It was the battle report with Andy Chambers and Jervis Johnson, Eldar, and Blood Angels. And I looked at that and I thought, oh, look at this. This is really great. I like that. And of course, then the how to paint epic armies article came out in White Dwarf, and I looked at that and I thought, oh gosh, this is painting epic armies is easy peasy. It's like paint them all one colour, paint the bases, you're done.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I thought, oh, that sounds really great. So
and then you got like psychopaths like me who actually paint them to like the same scale or the same level as like what I do my 40k stuff in.
Oh yeah, but the thing is, you can do that. I mean, that's the thing in itself, is you can do all of that if you want to, and I and I have done. And the thing is that that's the cool thing about what we do, is that you can. I mean, I always like the idea of, and this was very, very prevalent in the collecting articles that were out when I really started to get into this. I mean, this was before I joined Games Workshop, and that is that the emphasis was very much on you paint things in flat colours.
Yeah.
And you get the minimum amount of paint on the models in order to get them on the tabletop to play with as fast as possible. And I always really liked that as an idea, really, and the epic stuff particularly lends itself for that.
Yeah,
you don't have to. You don't have to do anything to them if you don't. Apart from painting the wall one colour.
Yeah.
And certain armies that benefit from extra colours, like for example the Ork army does, because their skin, because really their skin colour is the army uniform, and things like you identify clans by the colour of the models, but really the thing that unifies them is the skin colour. And so painting the skin, the heads and the arms on your Ork models is absolutely vital. I mean, you do that. Imperial Guard. I mean, although
cannon fodder.
I've heard it suggested that you could paint the skin on those models. I never did.
Yeah.
And because the skin areas were so small that it was almost pointless.
So hold on. Before you go too much further with that, we could bring up actually another question. Is obviously you got into the hobby mainly or initially because of the gaming, and then I think it seems to me that you rolled into painting more and more. What really got you into the painting side of things?
Well, what happened was my mate Chris really wasn't interested in the painting much at all, whereas I was looking at these models in White Dwarf going, oh, I really want that. I want that level, of the models to look like that. I want the flop bases. I want the green flop bases. I want the single painted models. I want the models to look really great. Chris was less bothered about that, and I had time on my hands. At the time, I think I was out of work. I was this was after Ladybird and just before I had a short-term job for about 6 months working for the UCCF. I think they still exist. It was what is it? Universities and Colleges Christian Fellowship.
Okay.
And they did graphic design and stuff, and I was recommended to do the job by a friend, and it was one of these recommendations where and here's a good life tip. When someone recommends you, say, yeah, I was offered this job but it wasn't really for me, why don't you go for it? Run like hell. I'm serious. Run like, because if these people aren't going to do that,
why should you?
Why should you? And it was, and it got me off the dole, but it was a horrible job.
Yeah,
working for a horrible boss. And I'm sure he'd be quite proud if he heard me say that. I did my job as a manager properly. Yeah, well done. But I was there 6 months, and I was made redundant from that. And but anyway, when I was actually off work, I actually started painting, because Chris and I would game every week. I had plenty of time to start painting stuff up. And in fact, I think we probably began Epic Gaming at the tail end of while I was still at Ladybird as well. So I think it's difficult to remember the timeline sometimes, but I mean, pretty much I wanted our armies to look like what was in White Dwarf.
Yeah,
and so easy to get those results because it was sort of single colour painting and washes and stuff like that, and a bit of dry brushing, and you can make your stuff look great. In fact, if you used grey undercoat, car spray undercoat, you could spray paint your entire Imperial Guard army, just paint the bases, and you're done.
Yeah.
Which was really good.
Hold on, since you're from way back in the day of like old Epic scale, you remember the old square bases, right? The 5 up on a square.
Oh,
did you when you put your models on bases? Did you have to file the bottom of your models, like the bottom of the circles, down a little bit to get them to fit in the base properly?
Nope.
Oh, cause I always had a hell of a time getting cutting them off the sprue and then trying to get them in their base. They never actually wanted to sit flush, so I'd always have to file the bottoms of the circles down to get them in the base.
Never had any trouble.
Huh.
I mean, I would use the butt of my. I still do it now, actually, because it is tight fit.
Yeah. I
would use the butt of my scalpel, because I use a scalpel. I don't use a modelling knife, because I like to take my life in my hands. To press them in and make sure they're flat. They must be flat.
Yeah.
I've got models off eBay, and they're be mounted flat, and I've literally rebased them because I'm that insane. It's like, you sit there, and you kind of go, no, I'm not having that. And they've got to be flat in the bases. How can anyone not get that right? So they always sat. I was able to make them sit flat. I didn't have to do any filing or anything like that. Anyway, so we were like, when it came to the painting stuff, I loved it so much, and because it was epic, it was really easy.
Yeah.
It always made it really cool. So it meant that we had fully painted armies, and more importantly than that, the bases were finished really well.
Yeah.
Because I learned the great, learned very, very, very quickly, and it's one of the things that they mentioned in the article, was that if you finish your bases really well, the simplest paint jobs look amazing.
Yeah.
Whereas if you finish it slapdash, then your basic painting doesn't look like anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those really weird things that it's like, and it's always been something I've taken a lot of care with.
Yeah.
Is actually making sure that the bases are finished.
Well, at least back in the day, they made it depends on what box set you get and what kind of like point in time. But I remember the Space Marines were like gray, the Orks were gray plastic. The Space Marines were gray plastic. The Orks were green plastic. The Eldar that I got were actually yellow plastic. Ooh. And but it varied like per box set, because like some what was the name of that box set that came with it came with like squats, Marines. It was like a bunch of heavy weapons. I keep wanting to say bonkers, and that's not it. I can't remember the name of the box set, but that one came in like a tan color. And then later on, all the epic stuff I got during second edition, everything in the US just switched over to like a gray plastic.
And that was mostly the stuff that I was buying was all into. I don't remember.
Okay.
The models in the actual the original box game. And when I say the original box game, I mean the second edition one.
Yeah.
That was all all green.
Okay.
But if you bought you bought one of like sort of the Chaos boxes or anything else, it was all in grey plastic.
Okay.
And I've not seen anything. Not seen many other colours. I mean, even when some tan stuff. I think yeah, the Orks and the squats came in tan stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, but not that really mattered, because it just undergo.
It almost seems like it was just like whatever polystyrene they had available at the time for the injection. Yeah. It was like, screw it, just make them blue.
Yeah, it would be that simple, really.
Yeah.
It's just the Titans, actually. I mean, most of the warlords that I got were red, and it's only just recently that I've gotten some that were black.
They did. Well, wow. Yeah, I've had red ones, I've had blue ones, and the ones I just got for that warlord that I did last year, I had to buy 3 separate warlords to get the weapons. Those were all gray.
Yes, I've seen grey as well. Yeah, it's sort of, it goes crazy. But once again, you undercoat them, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Oh, my RTB01 beakies, like the guy, when I was a teenager, the guy who taught me how to paint, he gave me a ton of sneaky beakies, and all the ones he gave me were green and blue. And then the original box set that my parents bought me were tan.
Yes. I mean, I had tan ones. I mean, I loved that box set. I mean, when we were like, because so after we'd done a lot of epic gaming, we then decided that we wanted to get more into 40k, more into 40k. So
yeah, I was actually going to ask you, like, what kind of rolled you into the 40k stuff?
And I think it was just the desire for the models, really.
Okay.
And because the models were really lovely, and we already had a load of stuff that we collected for Space Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we got a copy of the original Rogue Trader rules to try and play some games with, which was just mental, because I don't know how anyone could do anything with that rule set. Looking back on it now, and in comparison to when they released 40k as the first boxed game.
Oh, the second edition.
Yeah, it was much easier to understand. I mean, that was the beauty of the Epic system. One of the things about the Epic system that I really loved was that it was very, very clear what you had to do in order to win the game, and it was a very. I mean, people talk about competitive gaming and tournament gaming and all this kind of thing, and nothing like that ever really interested me at all. But you couldn't help but, be reasonably competitive when you played an Epic game, simply because, it was very simple. You were going out to capture objectives and break companies. And so you fought in a certain way in order to achieve that victory condition.
Yeah.
And apparently that was like the first, I mean, apart from Space Hulk, which had its own victory conditions. It was the first real game where there was a proper, clear cut. This is what you have to do to win. This is how you get your victory points. This is how many you need, all this kind of thing, and it was absolutely wonderful.
My understanding of Rogue Trader was it was more of a like the way the game was written. It was I don't play, so I don't quite know, but it was more of a campaign, like a D&D kind of thing, where it was centered around skirmishes, kind of like Necromunda, but meant to be played out like, you have a bunch, you basically kind of keep it going. And then when second edition came about, they went more toward like epic rules where you had objectives to do on the table.
Yeah. And things had points values that if you destroyed a unit, you got those victory points and stuff like that. It's great. It means it means that there's something to aim for in the game, apart from just just getting the models on the table and pushing them around. I can't imagine games that wouldn't revolve around something like that. Certainly not tabletop war games.
Did you did you get into painting 40K like right before you went to games to work at GW, or was it quite a bit before?
Oh yeah. I was painting stuff before I went to GW, and once again it would because I wanted to see, and this is true because I wouldn't just paint my army, I'd paint Chris's army because I wanted to see, and not just have my own army nicely painted up, but I wanted my opponent to have a nicely painted army because I wanted to see nice models coming towards me. And it's the same with we had a board with terrain on it, and the terrain made sure the terrain was nice because and of course that was the great thing about Epic, was that you had great terrain straight out of the box.
Oh yeah, it was cardboard in the second edition, wasn't it, for the buildings?
That's right.
Okay.
Oh, they were great. Really, really good. And you have some hills, you have some trees, and Joff. And, it's like, and I just thought, that's what I want to see. And, it's the experience of seeing the particularly in epic scale, seeing the swoop of the models and as companies like moved from one place to another. Just looked great, but and so I was always painting stuff before I actually went to GW.
I just thought of a really good question, so I'm writing it down.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, when I was made redundant from UCCF, that's when I can remember driving home with my girlfriend at the time, and I was like saying to her, I've been made redundant, and I've got this amount of time before I finish, and all this kind of thing. And I had just bought an issue of White Dwarf, opened it up, and there was an advert for what they call production assistants. And a production assistant was a graphic designer, a junior graphic designer. And I said to my girlfriend at the time, I said, I'd be a fool
not to do this
if I didn't go for this.
Yeah.
If I didn't at least go for it and try and get an interview. So I wrote off for it and all this kind of thing, and sent the CV, and they said, yeah, come on in. And of course, as I've told this story many times recently, when was interviewed for.
Well, hang on. Let's do another question for that, because you're rolling right into what I wanted to ask. Is how did you come to work at Games Workshop? And for our younger viewers, what was your role there?
Okay. Well, when I went for interview, it was to be a member of the studio production staff, a production assistant. And I got in there, and there was a guy called Chris Colston who was there for the studio, but there was another guy there, Robin Hughes, who was there for White Dwarf. And so they were both interviewing me, and so I kind of sat there and just was me. And I had my portfolio of stuff that I put together from Ladybird. I didn't have much at all from UCCF really, but I had all my stuff from Ladybird, and they looked at it and they said, "Well, you've clearly got the skills we need. But I have one problem really." And I said, "Oh, what's that?" And he said, "Well, you're 28." Is you're 28. You're actually way older than we normally take people on. We normally take on people straight from art college, probably about 18 or 19, and the reason they took these people on, or they didn't state it clearly, was that it meant they could employ them cheap.
Yeah, that's actually from what I've heard about Games Workshop in modern times. That's still a thing.
Oh yeah, it's not changed. So what you would do is they kind of considered themselves offering an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So you went in as an apprentice, and you effectively, and you'd probably do a couple of years working at a crap wage, and then what would happen is that you'd then see something much better, and you'd go. Yeah. And you'd start your career properly, this kind of thing. Whereas I was 28, and I said, "Oh, I'll work for peanuts, mate." Yeah. Because I knew I wanted to get a foot in the door. So I said I'd start for the same amount of money I was on when I was on at Ladybird. So I knew I knew I could live on it, and so I said that, and they went, "Oh, really? Oh, so you because I think they were thinking I was going to ask for something like twice the amount of money as I want." I said, "Oh no, this." I said, "Oh well, in that case," and so I was offered to work on to go and work in White Dwarf, because I think Robin had just lost a member of staff, and so literally it was a case of, I need somebody right now, and as you said you've got good eye contact, I think it was that there was I had no front. I am who I am. I can't be anything else other than who I am. I'm not dead bullshit. I don't walk around acting like I know everything and all this kind of stuff, because I don't. Most other people I realised working at Games Workshop is you realise that most people have got a massive work mask on, and they're not real people. You're not dealing with real people at all, and particularly at Games Workshop, because everything was so hyper competitive. And so I started working at White Dwarf. It was quite funny because I within my first week of working there, Robin said, "You will be kept on." I know we've talked about there being like a 3-month trial, but it's obvious we're going to keep you on because
that's cool.
you can do everything. And not only that, but you're more than happy to take anything on.
So you're just
I think yes. Yes, I thought the same thing. Yeah, well, that's sorted. Woohoo!
So you came on like right around when Second Edition came out. It was right before Second Edition came out.
It was just as it was coming out, literally just as it was coming out, and the new models were great and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, when I joined them, I mean, as an Epic player, I'd mostly been an Imperial Guard player. I hadn't played Orcs at all, and in fact, I don't think to this and not to this day, I've never played Orcs actually, which is really weird, considering that as I became the de facto Orc player in Games Workshop with a guy who.
Well, you had a pretty big Orc army for Epic for 3rd edition.
No, I never played it.
Oh, you just like to paint them?
No, I had it was part of the job.
Okay.
It was that happened quite often. It was like, oh, we need some armies painted. Oh, I'll paint you an Epic army. I don't think I ever played with it.
Oh, okay.
It was just
when you got there, it was just for Eavy Metal. It was just Mike and Tim, wasn't it?
Oh no! When I was there, no, not
no. Like
all.
See, my understanding was like when Second Edition happened, like there was a restructuring of the company, and they basically axed all of the Eavy Metal staff. What I think they had 6 or 7 guys, like everybody but Tim and Mike got canned, and then they did all the initial Second Edition box art. Miniatures, and then they started hiring more staff on as Second Edition came out, when like after all the style guides were created for painting, like hypothetically like Blood Angels, Ultramarines, so everything stayed uniform.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I mean, when I started working there, there was a whole heavy metal team there. Neil Hodgson was there.
He was on that early?
Yeah. Neil was there. Quite a few other people were there, whose names completely escape me in this moment. And so there was a heavy metal team, and they were painting everything. And that was great. And so when I joined, and I was like taking on new jobs. One of the things I took on was the battle report photography.
Oh, okay.
And I really enjoyed doing that, and doing battle report photography, and indeed doing photography of any kind became something that I did a huge amount of.
So hold on, for the battle report photography, did you actually like when you guys were doing them? I'm assuming you kept notes of kind of what was going on the table, and then for what was printed in White Dwarf, you would reenact this. You would set the scene back up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That was the. I mean, we always made it very clear in the magazine that that's what was done, and that was exactly right. It meant that we could create nice looking photographs that showed off, because it was all about showing off the miniatures.
Yeah.
The thing I really liked about Games Workshop when I was in my interview is that I always thought Games Workshop was all about rules. And it was all about the rules came first, and actually that's not true at all. What it is that the models come first.
Yeah.
And usually the models come first. Then the most evocative name you could possibly give that model, because the name's everything, and then you work out the rules afterwards.
Was there a rule? Because it used to drive me nuts as a kid and like a teenager and all that stuff. It wasn't up until 3rd edition came out that it really started to change. But was there a rule where you couldn't show the back of the model?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because I was always wondering what they looked like from the backside, and like they never showed it in White Dwarf. It was always front shots. In the battle reports, they were always facing forward. It was like, God!
It was, there were style conventions. I mean, there were lots of. I mean, the thing is that as a member of White Dwarf staff, and in fact, really a member of anything, you weren't technically a graphic designer.
Mm-hmm.
You were a production staff, and what that meant is that things were never. You worked with formats a lot. Well, we called them templates these days. You'd have templates to lay out your articles. It just meant everything looked the same.
Yeah.
And there was house style rules for doing the battle report, doing any kind of photography really. Mm-hmm. One was you didn't show the backs of the models, and a lot of the time that's because sometimes the backs of the models weren't painted.
Oh, geez. I know in current times that's kind of a thing.
Yeah, so which was but not all the time. I mean, I don't want that to be. Oh, AD said they didn't paint battlers. Well, some of them weren't. The backs of the models weren't painted, and in fact, some heavy metal guys' jobs was painting the reverse sides of the models to kind of make them something complete you can actually use on the tabletop. But generally speaking, we wanted the models to look their best.
Yeah.
So you don't show the back of the model. There was a logic to it. The logical reason for doing that was that. The other thing is that you want to try and minimize something called interference, which is if you've got a model and another model's got its arm over someone's face.
Uh-huh.
Or something like that. I mean, you can't have that because that, once again, it's like the face or the helmet is the focal point of the model. So the best thing you want is to sort of have that kind of thing going.
Yeah.
So there was that. When you took photographs, you didn't set the camera up too high because all you could see was the base. So you always shot it reasonably low. Mm-hmm. But then you also needed to create a big enough depth of field so that when you photographed your army, it all looked in focus.
Yeah.
Which meant that though you ended up, the farther back you had your camera set up, the better, because it meant that you could get the whole table in focus.
Yeah, you were using like what, a macro? Macro lens, long distance lens.
Oh, no idea.
Okay.
Yeah. At the time, and it wasn't digital.
Yeah, I was going to say, for the Newhammer kids, this wasn't digital. This is back when we had film.
Yeah. This was film, and we took, you use Polaroids to check your focus. You took a Polaroid, checked it, was just your focus, great, okay. Then we'll take the film shots. Then we send them off to be processed. And then we got them back and checked them, make sure they were in focus. And then we used we scanned the Polaroids in to use as placeholders until we sent off to the guys who would do who would create the films for printing. And so what would often happen is that you'd end up with, there'd be little tricks you do, like if you had the camera lens that's like this, mm-hmm. if you tipped it forward slightly, you got bigger depth of field. Mm-hmm. So that was a nice little trick, and you never noticed there was never any distortion, because as long as you made sure you didn't go too overboard, it just meant you were always trying to fight your depth of field to get your models to be as in focus as they possibly could,
God,
without the base being the dominant thing.
No, the photo mat you guys hired must have loved you. The amount of film you processed through them.
Oh yeah, I mean, because you took like at least a couple of shots. You didn't just do one; you did at least a couple, because you wanted to make sure that you actually got something back. Yeah, because you didn't have the time to mess around. You didn't have the you couldn't just you'd set that all up again. Yeah, it was setups took a long time.
Well, my first job that I had was actually working in the digital department of like a photo processing company here in town. It was called Allen Photo. And they had like a photo studio. It was like they had just bought some of like the latest Canon digital cameras. I mean, like $8,000 for a camera base that barely shot like a 5 megapixel image, but everything was primarily film based. And they did they blew up photos. They did retouching and all that. And they had a digital department where I worked. And we actually did the whole like contact sheets, drum scanning of films, drum scanning of like negatives and transparencies. I remember the second drum scanner we bought. That thing went to 10,000 DPI. Ooh. Yeah, you could pull a few 100 meg file out of this drum scanner at the time. I mean, you could get so far into a transparency, like a 3x4, that you could actually start seeing the film grain.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
So wow. I can only imagine what it was like for you in the design department. You know, like shoot your battle report photos, send 3 rolls of film off to the photo mat, have it all developed. I don't know if you guys were using 35 millimeter or larger. Have, you know, get your contact sheet back. Yeah, that one, blow those up, get them drum scanned, get the digital files back, figure out that, like, you know, 2 out of the 8 were blurry, and then this whole process just for one issue of White Dwarf, just for like one battle report, or like one in McVeigh's Masterclass Studios or something like that.
Well, the actual size of photographs we used were 5x4.
Oh, okay.
And we didn't actually get scans back.
Oh, okay.
It was years before we actually started working with actual scans. Mm-hmm. Because that was all done by the repro people who was an outside company. Yeah, we sent them we would get a photograph back, and we would literally look at it, check it over with a glass, eyeglass, to get everything was in focus, and then as long as it was all in focus, which it should be, because you could kind of tell on the Polaroid, mm-hmm. then you were fine. It was fairly primitive. Looking back on it now, it was fairly primitive.
Oh wait, was this back when you would actually print out the page like on a printer without the photos in it, and then you'd actually place the photographs on the page, and then the print company would create the drums from that?
No, what would happen is that we would import a scan of the Polaroid in to the page. Okay. We would do it that way, and we would import, I think that was the case, and we would import those in, and then we'd send it all off, and then they would replace the photograph, replace the scanned Polaroid with the proper photograph. Okay. And just like in and use it for scale and stuff. Yeah, that was a little bit before my time, so I never got into that side. I just learned about that stuff in college when I went. And I started working in 97, 98-ish. So, you know, right at the dawn of like desktop scanners, my desktop PC where I worked, man, I had a 200 megahertz Pentium 1 MMX with like 128 megs of RAM and like 2 10 gig hard drives. And oh geez, I thought that was like the top tier for production work. And oh boy, how time goes on. Anything, you know, looking at what computers are now compared to, I mean, the stuff you can do on your phone.
Oh yeah.
let alone what you used to do on an Apple Mac, and the amount of like space you had on an Apple Mac to do what you wanted.
Oh yeah, back in Cork when you had to use references to pull, like you had a low pixel preview of a reference photo outside the software, and then when you actually output the PostScript, it would pull all the reference pieces in, and then you have to run it through a RIP. Ugh.
No. I mean, fortunately, we never had to worry about that. We just let the repro people.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they did that on their end.
Thank goodness. Or at least that's how it was with when we were working on White Dwarf. As time went on, working at Games Workshop, you would use more. You'd use more proper scans, and you would work with those, put those in.
Well, that's what I mentioned earlier with issue 191 when you went to Fat Dwarf. It was like graphically, from the graphic side of things improved a lot in White Dwarf. Like your use of the original artwork, like Mike Gibbons and John Blanche and all that stuff. Your use of the artwork on the pages was astronomically great. I mean, it was like literally it was a leap in generation of design work, layout work, photography. Everything just got a lot more fun, more expressive, more around the lines of like, kind of what we know today. Because like you look at a year or two prior, and White Dwarf was very almost sterile. That's the only word that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And then when you went to the Fat Dwarf, it was like, this is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it was the funny thing about Fat Dwarf was that it really became a cross to bear, because there was so many extra pages you had to not only generate but had to lay out. So much more stuff, I mean, I can't remember. So I think they were originally 96 pages, and
that sounds about right.
And I think what was 144? I'm not sure, but it would be like the amount of extra production time, and we needed more staff in order to do it, which was interesting in itself. So they all needed like training up a bit, which I ended up doing, and it was a real headache, and I think it was. There was a lot of the time we were the problem was that you had extra editors coming in to try and get the work done, but we were still consistently late all the time, and that didn't really. I don't think that we ever really quite resolved that. Just one of those things.
The question that I came up with that I wanted to ask you, like you've throughout your time at Games Workshop, especially when you went to Fat Dwarf, a lot of your models started like your models and staff models started appearing in the issues of White Dwarf, whereas like I don't know, like a year or two prior, you rarely ever saw staff models. You rarely ever saw models from the retail stores, guys painting there. But over time, like, I mean, by the time your stuff started getting printed, you were good. You were really good. Like, you were one of the guys that I looked up to. I love seeing your take on miniatures. So my question is, like, your time there, like, especially since you'd started, did the Eavy Metal staff actually help you in painting it better?
No.
Okay.
However, I wouldn't say that they helped. They didn't coach us from the point of view that they didn't come over and join us and kind of say, because they had too much on. Yeah. I could go to them and say, oh, by the way, how do you do such and such? And they would tell me. But generally speaking, I kind of built up my own set of techniques that I used. Okay. And which is why when you look at my stuff in comparison to, say, what the metal staff are doing, it's completely different. It has a completely different look and feel to it, because it was really my approach. So we didn't. We were never coached by them, because frankly they had enough on the plate, painting all the models up for the for the box fronts and all this kind of thing, you know. And bear in mind that, you know, they didn't paint armies; they painted box fronts.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you know, I've had a few people say to me, or I've heard people talking about the Games Workshop studio and talking about how great the Ork army was. It wasn't. It wasn't a great army to. It wasn't a great army to play with. Yeah, 10 strong mobs of orcs if you're lucky.
Yeah.
What?
Oh yeah, you guys predominantly had what was painted for box art, and that was it.
We had that. Bear in mind that you know, most of the orc stuff wasn't even box art. It was because you bought them in blisters initially.
Yeah,
because they were all models and stuff.
Well, there was a whole bunch. There was tons and tons of different like metal orc bodies that you could buy that like I never saw in White Dwarf. There was one issue. I don't know which one it is. It was I want to say like mid '90s, where it was right before second edition, where I forgot what clan of orcs it is. I want to say Blood Axes, but like, I mean, it's a good chunk of them, and they're all painted with like gray fatigues and, you know, the normal skin and stuff like that. But it was like the 2 or 3 photos I saw on older White Dwarfs, never saw those models again. So all those, you know, the 20, 30 orc metal bodies with the plastic arms, there was only a handful of those in the mobs in White Dwarf, and they were basically like, it was a lot of the stuff that was shown in like the painting guides, how to paint Warhammer 40,000 and how to paint Citadel miniatures. And yeah, I mean, outside of that, you guys didn't have much to play with, because that seems to be like the extent of what was painted. Yeah,
it was very much like that. It's like, you know, why AD, what, you know, why didn't you ever do this in your battle? Because we didn't have the models. That's why. I mean, if you know, my own Ork army, it was like, you know, you'd have got Goth mobs that were 20. You were always 20 strong, or they'd have to put it this way. After a while, when I really started to twig onto this, it's like you start to realise, no, actually, we need 20 strong mobs of orcs, 30 strong mobs of orcs. We need to be as big as possible. And certainly when third edition came out, which was, you know, sort of, that's when I think that the Ork army really became an Ork army you could play with and have a competitive chance of winning.
That was what, third edition was what, 98 or 99?
Something like that.
Okay.
So before that, I mean, it's like second edition I really hate. It was no fun at all, because, you know, it was just wasn't an army that you could do anything with, really, in a lot of ways. It's just one of those things.
Well, I remember there was a battle report that you guys did. Oh God, I think it was I forgot who was playing. It was multiple people playing, and one side was playing Space Marines, and it was every chapter. But there was it was like a ton of vehicles, like stuff that had never been shown before. It was, I mean, rhinos and predators and land raiders and stuff like that. But it seems like the vehicles that were used outside of the box art models were painted up specifically for that battle report. I want to say I think you guys were fighting against, it was Space Marines versus Imperial Guard. I'd have to dig it out. It's in my storage room behind me. But yeah, it seemed like it was really limited due to the studio models. Oh, and one good thing that a lot of us Oldhammer dudes have questions about. I've asked you about it and you confirmed it, but just for the show. So when you guys did battle reports, like on the tabletop, when you guys played, you actually used the box art models?
Oh yeah.
Holy crap.
Because we had, you know, and you had to use, like for example, weapon fits, is you had to use the weapons that were on the models. Yeah. You know, and you know, and all this kind of thing, and you had to play the rules properly. There weren't any house rules used, and this caused problems. There weren't any house rules that were used or anything like that. You had to play the rules properly. You had to use the models that were on the shelves. And you generally had to use models that were the latest models that were coming out. So you were encouraged to use, such as, you know, like bore boys or what have you.
Yeah.
You know, and all that kind of stuff. So, but you know, it's like, yeah, very very much that's the way it was. So
I'm assuming those things were shot with varnish.
yeah, they would be gloss varnished first and then matte varnished.
Okay. Yeah, the amount of I asked you like how often those things would have to be repaired or repainted due to like handling and stuff like that. I'm like, God, they must have like globbed those things with varnish.
Well, one of the things that you tended to do was you always held them and moved them by the bases.
Oh, okay.
Bases are easy to, you know, to move around. And generally speaking, you tried to move them by the bases so that they kept their paint jobs pristine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for Newhammer kids back when we were young, all we had were the 25 millimeter, were they 25 or 20 millimeter slotted bases?
25.
Okay, yeah, we had the 25 millimeter slotted bases, and the reason why they were called slotted bases is because our old metal models, everything was metal pretty much. They all came with a tab on the bottom that went into a slot on the base, so they were called slotted bases back then. Now they're just called bases, but now everything I think is standardized at 30 millimeter and up, so it's actually easier to like. It's a lot easier to pick them up by the base now than it was back then.
Oh yeah, that's definitely true.
I think I've only done, since getting back into this last year, I think I've only done 2 or 3 models that are a 30 millimeter base size. Like the Logan Grimnar that I'm paying for Olden Demon right now, I have no idea what size base he's on. I just grabbed something that I know he'd fit and stuck a bunch of tactical rocks on it. With your painting style, from Old White Dwarf, who actually influenced you in your painting style?
Oh, that's a great question. And that's the thing everybody says when they're asked. Oh, that's a great question. No, that's cool.
I've had a couple guys who are like, "Oh, I don't know, man."
Well, I can tell you probably the biggest influence when it came to painting miniatures was Dave Andrews.
Oh.
He wasn't even an heavy metal painter. I mean, he could have been. I'm really good at it. But Dave had a way of painting that always blew me away. Both him and Ali Morrison both employed the same style of painting. And the style of painting could be summed up like this. You paint... it was all done with using layers. And what you do is that you apply a dark base color, and then you paint a mid-tone on top, and that's it.
Oh,
you don't do anything else. You might add a bit of highlighting to a face, but you don't do anything more than that. I mean, when the washes came out, which changed everything for me, because I remember when I painted at one of my Ork armies, decided I was going to paint everything in flat colours. Looked great, looked like. So you had bright goblin green skin, and then you'd have you paint your metal areas, gunmetal, and all this kind of thing, and you paint, and you very very limited palette of colours.
Yeah. So
like black, green, and metal, and bone fur, claws and teeth.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much it. And one of the lads said to me, "Have you thought about using Nuln oil as a wash?"
Oh, so this is further down the road.
Oh yeah, much further down.
Yeah, because Nuln oil, like I was confused as hell when they brought out. It was originally called Badab Black, and then it became Nuln oil, and they went from inks to shade colors, which is what you're talking about. And I went to my local shop, and this is back in 2009. I think I ran out of black ink, and Games Workshop really hadn't said anything about like changing the inks to the shade paints they have now. I picked up some Badab Black, brought it home, and I was trying to line something with it. I'm like, why is this so thin? and just like washing it over metal. I'm like, this isn't black ink. And I chucked it in my paint box, never used it again. I just started thinning down black, Chaos Black, and using that as a wash for metallics.
But I loved Nuln oil. I mean, and I still use it today. You know, I use it on epic stuff. It's just like, because literally a coat of that went over the top of my flat painted models, and then suddenly they looked like it was a finished art because it naturally shaded and highlighted the models.
Yeah,
and that, I love that. I mean, that was really great. You could actually have something that would cut down the amount of work you did. So my philosophy became very much a case of, you paint something in a fairly light base color, and then you wash it down with Nuln oil, and you do that, and it's naturally shaded and highlighted. Now, the thing I found really odd. This is going to be controversial. looking forward to that.
Bring it.
Is the paint system that I'm looking at the paint system that we currently have. It's a nonsense, because what you've got is you've got base colors, washes, layer paints, second layer paints, and I looked at that and I thought, when they brought this out, because you applied your dark base color, then you applied a wash, then you started to put on your layer paints. That made absolutely no sense to me. Why aren't you putting on a light base color, which will, because it's a light color, if it should cover over black quite nicely, particularly if it's goblin green or something, and then shade and highlight, and then shade it with a nice dark Nuln oil color or something like that, and and then you don't have to do anything else with it. You don't have to highlight anything unless you want to pick out stuff on the face, which would probably be about the only time I would do it. And it was around this time when Army Painter were coming out and were doing stuff, and I never used their dipping approach to do that. I know Dave Andrews had a go with that, and he gave me some of those ones. They look really nice, but it's like, I always thought it was a better approach to use your shading colours, your washes, to shade down a light colour, and the result always was so quick, so easy, and just looked absolutely fabulous. But I never understood the whole, so you apply a base colour and then you apply a wash. That's pointless.
Well, that was kind of tradition, though. Like the you look at the old Citadel, their first, like the second edition, how to paint Warhammer 40,000 models, or the second edition era, how to paint Citadel miniatures. It was always like, apply your base coat, whatever color, like let's say Blood Angels, you apply blood red, and then you wash it with like red ink mixed with a little bit of black ink, and like in the recesses, and then you start highlighting up with Blood Angels red, and then I think you had like, back then it was fiery orange to the Blood Angel red to get the edge highlights. And in modern times, like when I was getting back into this, Citadel's paint line threw me for a complete loop. I had no idea what was going on, because they they renamed foundation paints to base colors. And then the standard line of paints were now called layer colors. And then they had contrast and shade colors. And basically shade is like the old glaze paints from second edition era. And then the contrast is basically like an ink wash, but it's both the shade and the contrast are different formulation now. They're not inks. And they can't be reactivated because they have the same acrylic medium that the paints has. But the whole point I'm trying to make is, like, I was thrown for a loop, and after I got back into it, I started to understand, I guess it's called the triad system, where it makes it easier for entry-level painters or people just getting into the hobbies to use the paints. Like you want to paint ultramarines, you want to paint ultramarine armor. Here's the 5 colors that you need. Here's the base color, here's the contrast paint, here's the shade paint, and here's the 3 highlights the 3 layer paints that you start from here and go here, and you have an ultramarine. And you can do 10 of them the exact same way, and everything looks the same. Whereas like you, me, and every other Oldhammer person, we grew up in the 80s and the 90s, even in the 2000s, where we didn't have any kind of triad system. It was like you start with blood red, you mix in blood angel orange, you highlight up with fiery orange, and if you want to get really technical with it, you can add a little bit of sunburst yellow or bad moon yellow to the final mix to get that final edge highlight. But I can see why they cut that out, because it's with the triad system now, it's kind of nonsensical, or it makes less sense than like, here's the 10 colors that you need for all of your ultramarines. Done. And I was looking at some of your models today, actually. Are you just specific? Are you exclusively using shade paints, or are you using contrast as well?
I use contrast all the time. I say, well, because I'm mostly painting epic stuff. Mm-hmm. And even that includes some of the big chaos demons and stuff, the greater demons, and I've used contrast paints to paint those, and they're great. I love them absolutely. It's literally like painting with flat colours, except it's got built-in shading and highlighting.
Yeah,
and it's just all. Which means I can literally sit there and you just paint on one colour over. It's like painting this area, painting this area, this area. Or in the case, say on one of the greater demons, you might do that, and then you build them, and they're all wonderful, really lovely. The best thing is when you paint your troops, you can literally go, right, okay, paint a company of Space Marines, spray them up with. Well, it used to be Corax White, but then they discontinued that, annoyingly.
Oh, I've got it on my desk. I can't see it from here. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Grey Seer. I use Grey Seer now, and that's lovely. It's pretty much the same. Slight touch darker, but not that much to make that much of a difference. And then you can literally go, right, okay, Coat of Agaros dunes, done. And they look shaded, they look highlighted, they look absolutely lovely. They look great. Then you paint the base up, which is usually like a bestial brown, which is Armour Painter, and then I use is it Armageddon Dust, which is one of the texture paints, and I texture all the bases up with this stuff, and I wash it with Reichland Flesh Shade. Okay. And that makes the that top texture color exactly match.
I really liked your I've been braining this all day. Your idea for your Warlord Titan, how you use magnets for all the weapons. I look at mine, I'm like, oh, baubles, I wish I'd done that.
Well, it was actually, the funny thing is that, I mean, I've people said, oh, yeah, I do that, but I build them into the holes. It's like, oh, great, that's good. I wanted something that was, it doesn't have to be that discreet. It can be, it can be whatever. I just wanted to keep it fairly simple, really.
Well, for I think it's a difference in models, because like the warlords that we know and love, they always look better when you just attach the weapon straight to the arm sockets. You don't have the stupid extensions, and trying to build those magnets into those arm sockets. Good luck. I mean, you're going to be sitting there drilling and filling with super glue and all kinds of crap.
No thanks. I've got better things to do with my life. Thanks.
Whereas now it's like everything. I think now they're a lot more modular. They're meant to be. I mean, they're all being built in 3D anyway, so they're meant to be a lot more modular now. And I got like the.
All those models. I mean, what the hell? I mean, for Titan, I don't know, but it's like I haven't got. It's bad enough going on eBay and buying one of the old Warlords, where you're spending out 20 quid or something.
Yeah, 20, 30 quid a friggin' Titan.
but they're great. You know, I love them. I think they're great looking models. I mean,
so actually, hang on a second before we get too far with that. A perfect question for what we're talking about right now. How do you think old Games Workshop miniatures compare to new ones?
Well, I think the Epic stuff compares. The Epic plastic stuff compares really favourably, and a lot of the metal stuff does as well. When it comes to 28mm stuff, I would say, I mean, if I can only really talk about the Ork armies, and that, I mean, and I collected plenty of Cav Adams stuff, and metal stuff, and all this kind of stuff. But I have to say, Brian Nelson's plastic Orks, the multi-part models, were just absolutely delight. Are
you talking about the ones that are like third, fourth edition, the modular ones?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my gal just bought a box of those.
And you know, the only thing I didn't like about them was that they had this peculiar thing where they were very gorilla-like. So you had like, see if I can get my finger to go in on the screen so I can try and draw it. Oh, there we go. So the Ork would go like this, and then the ass would like go out. And that's kind of the only thing I didn't like about them, because it made them look like they had these great big pot bellies and this huge great arse.
Wait, are you talking about the old Rogue Trader ones?
No.
Or third edition?
I'm talking about the Brian Nelson's plastic ones.
Funny enough, you're talking about having them stick their butts out. I joke with my gal constantly, like the RTB01 sneaky beakies, them boys are throwing it back.
Oh yeah. I think they all do.
The Orks, the same thing with the Orks around that time too. They're in like the same squatty stance, sticking their butts out.
Yeah, but that was probably the only thing I didn't like about them. But I built thousands of them, and they were never a chore, because they were just such fab models, and you could do sort of little conversions to them. And okay, something I very rarely get a chance to talk about, but
have at it.
Definitions of words. It's like, for example, we talk about modelling and converting models, and I think that a conversion is when you have like a single pose model, and you maybe do a head swap, and you boost and you kind of do stuff, and that's what I call a proper conversion. But a lot of the stuff that I do is modelling, which is more to do with actually taking a model that you've actually got. And for example, one of my favourite things to do, particularly with the Ork models, was they were covered in lots of spare like bits of strap and stuff like that, belts and all this kind of thing. And they always had earrings, and lots of the helmets would all have the little horns on and all this kind of thing. One of my favourite things to do was, as a little way of making the models look distinct and different from each other, take the earrings off, get rid of the horns on the helmets so they're much simpler shape. Any of these extra straps, you could cut those off, and it was a moment's work. I mean, it would not, if you got a file, you file it down a bit, no problem at all. It was literally a moment's work. But that kind of modelling meant that for the most part, people didn't notice it, because I always think that the best models and the best conversions are models that you look at and you kind of go, "Oh, that's a conversion, is it? I thought they made that." I've always struggled with. I've seen people do conversions where you've got this Ork and he's carrying the biggest gun you've ever seen in your entire life. That's so funny. No, it's not. It looks crap. Sorry to be a real bore. It doesn't look great. I don't think it looks right. I think that I would rather have something that was much more subtle, something that's, Well, that's just me.
Did you did you by chance catch the wrap up for Adepticon Golden Demon?
No.
You were talking about how like a conversion, you think it like that's the actual model. A guy took it's one of the modern orc models, and he's the way the guy converted it, it's an actual existing model. I hadn't seen it yet. I'm not too up on Newhammer stuff, but it was actually, I can't go a video without mentioning her name. Louisa's Adepticon wrap up, Rogue Hobbies. She did a bunch of the winners, and she showed side by side the guy who took, it was like first or second place for his orc knob, his orc guy, showed the actual GW model and then his model. And you can't tell his model's a conversion. You think it's like something that came in the box, like it was an alternate like weapon and like an alternate axe. It was just so perfectly converted that it doesn't look like a kit bash. It just looks like, oh, Games Workshop made an alternate version of that model. That's cool.
Yeah, it's actually just really good model.
Yeah, it's not over the top. It's not garish. It looks. It's like, can I buy that? Well, I gotta go to the website. Oh, are you kidding me? I want that one.
No, you can't have it because it's a conversion. Oh, I love stuff like that, but it's when things look subtle.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I enjoy that more than anything else. And like I said, sometimes it's not even really a technically conversion. It's modelling. It's like things like drilling out gun barrels and all that kind of stuff. It's modelling. It's like those next level things you can do to a miniature to just kind of take it to the next level, and then even do something like just nick off an earring or take a bit off or something like that, and just remove a little detail.
Yeah,
and they just look and. Oh, that looks really nice. So you don't realize.
You might actually remember from the mid to late 90s, there was a guy who always competed. I think he was in Europe. A guy who always competed. His name was Neil Thomason. And he constantly won first, second place in Golden Demon for 40K stuff. He did a lot of Space Wolves. And yeah, I mean, he was in the 90s. He was the definition of exactly what you just said, because he would take the Space Wolf character models and do conversion work and modeling work on them, and you'd swear that like Games Workshop made that model. It was just so perfectly done. It was there was the one that I just ran across today, flipping through pictures for your stuff. He took a Nuln Stormcaller, like the body with the forward facing head, changed the left arm to have almost like it was like a spear, and then his right arm he had a bolt pistol in it. And with the way he converted it and the way he modeled it, you'd swear Games Workshop actually made that. And that was like every single entry that he took first place for or got a Slayer sword for was exactly that. It was never over. He actually did a couple of Eldar too, which were amazing. But it was like anytime I saw Golden Demon come up, I'm like, on the cover, it was like, oh, I want to see if Neil Thomason's in this one. And sure enough, like 96, 94, 90, when the hell did I get into it? 95, 96, 97, he always won first place in Europe. Yeah, I'll have to take some pictures. If I send them to you, you'd be like, oh, I know that guy. I remember placing those pictures.
Sure. Probably, I can't remember them, but they sound, stuff like that sounds really great.
So along kind of the same question, what do you think of modern, like what do you think of 90s Grim Bright or 90s Eavy Metal Grim Bright painting versus modern Eavy Metal Grim Dark style painting?
Grim Dark every time.
Okay.
Grim Dark every time. Okay. Anybody can paint their models any way they like.
Mm-hmm.
If you painted a model Grim Bright, fab, and I will tell you that's a brilliantly painted model. It looks fantastic, and it is. I'm not lying. If I was going to paint my own stuff, it would be grim. It would always be Grim Dark, and that's what I would prefer. I have this thing with a lot of the epic stuff that I'm seeing being painted up. People are really trying to people tend to fall into a couple of different camps, really. One of them being that they will paint them to mimic what was in the White Dwarfs, and it looks brilliant. It looks really great. It looks really, really nice, and it mimics what's in the White Dwarf. And then there are other people like myself who go, red tanks, bright blue tanks. And I don't think they look great. They look better in Epic, actually, because you've got whole loads of them. They look better in Epic. You see that on a 28mm model, and it's just like, that looks ridiculous. Like, well, you wouldn't paint a tank red. You just wouldn't. So, and it's why my own Epic collection is all based around actual military style colours, things like khakis and greens and things like that, because I wanted all my stuff to look military, and that includes the orcs. I mean, the orcs were an interesting one because I initially tried to paint the orc vehicles black, and they looked terrible. They just didn't look right at all. They just looked, I just didn't look right. So I ended up painting them like tan colour Agros dunes, because it just made them look military. But then you've got but the orcs themselves are still dressed in black, and because I tried to paint them in Agros dunes, and some of them the snake bites are done in that colour scheme, and it seems to suit them quite nicely. But I thought the orcs looked better when they were painted in black all over, and then you picked out on the shoulder pads, you picked out the clan colours.
Well, it's funny that you're saying that, because in one of the articles that I cropped your pictures from today, you were actually talking about how with your old 3rd edition Ork army that you painted that was shown in White Dwarf, you talked about how you actually base coated all your models in black and worked up from there. Yeah,
I mean, generally speaking, when it came to later on, as I painted, as I did more and more orcs, they were all goths. But then they were goths. But they could so easily, if I painted their shoulder pads a certain colour, they could be evil suns or moons or anything else. And to me that looks right for the orcs. It looks right. And they do look, particularly in Epic, they look superb.
Yeah,
really nice like that. But if I was going to put their vehicles, aren't going to be like red or black or blue or anything else.
But red ones go faster.
Yeah, that's imperial propaganda. That is, it's trying to make. I said, oh yeah, the weapons only work because they believe they work. No. Orc technology is pinnacle. Their stuff works. It's an imperial lie that it works because they believe it works. Imperial stuff works because they believe it works. They cast spells on it. They sacrifice. They make sacrifice animals. They do all this stuff. They give incantations, for heaven's sake.
There's somewhere in the Golden Throne.
Based on.
Somewhere in the Golden Throne, in one of the drawers, they have there's a box of DVDs that have all the PDFs backed up of all the Imperium technology that they can't figure out how to remake anymore. It's like, did you check the drawer next to the Emperor? Because I'm pretty sure it's in there. Oh no, we don't touch that drawer. You might want to open it because the PDFs are in there.
It's the SDLs or whatever whatever they call. I can't remember what they're called now. But it's the fact that everything has to be, a rhino is a rhino, and it's based on that. And, and they put it together a certain way, and somehow it works. Whereas with orcs, it works because Because if you look at Ork models, if you look at an Ork truck, the Ork truck, the 28mm Ork truck, it's a proper truck with an engine. And with it's got you could get in that truck and drive it.
Yeah.
Switch it on and drive it.
It's actually funny to see that the designs of a lot of the Ork stuff that we know now started in Gorkamorka.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I had one of those the original Rogue Trader 2nd edition Ork battle wagons. I thought that thing was great, but it never, that was the one vehicle that Games Workshop brought out for Orks. And then Gorkamorka came along and just completely shifted everything, the way the Orks look. Prior to Gorkamorka, they were these skinny dudes with their butts sticking out, wearing a t-shirt and jeans, running in a battle. And it's how the hell are these guys a threat to the Imperium at all? And then when Gorkamorka came out, they got all big and stacked and taller than Space Marines. Their vehicles actually got way more interesting looking, all the trucks they had back then. And still in modern times, the sculpts still resonate from what came out in Gorkamorka.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But obviously that's how I think about books. I don't think of them as jokes or anything like that. I see them as being a predatory force in the 40k universe, and that's me. But even in Epic, they're talking about how the Epic plastic models look. Getting back to that question, the Epic plastic models look fab, and they really have maintained their look.
Yeah.
Some of the metal models are a little bit ropier, but a lot of them are good.
Are you talking about modern? They don't have any metal models in modern times for the most part. If they do, they're just recast of old ones.
Yeah, I'm talking about stuff from the up until about 2000.
Oh, okay.
When Epic just, I don't talking about anything new.
Okay.
But for the original plastics and metal stuff, for the most part, it's actually retained its quality.
Yeah,
and part of that's the size. I absolutely love them. I've painted up so much stuff.
Yeah,
I've got cases full of Epic models. I just need some opponents now. I'm actually playing my first Epic game in about 20 years next month. I'm playing a guy called Jonny Watson who has his own YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. He's somehow managed to coax me into playing a game, and I'm quite looking forward to it because he's an Ork player, and I get to fight against Orks, and with going to use Space Marines and what have you, and really looking forward to it because I love the game. I love how the game looks. I love how the game works. But it will be 2nd edition rules.
Okay, I was just going to ask that.
No, not Net Epic or Armageddon or anything like that. It's just 2nd ed. Because I tried to, and I've said this before, I thought to myself, well, I'll read the original Space Marine rules, and then I'll look at the Net Epic rules set. Mm-hmm. And so I read through the original 2nd edition Space Marine rules, mm-hmm. and didn't take very long at all. It was like, oh yeah, this is just how I remember it. And then I started to read the Net Epic rules and gave up within a few pages.
That's technically 4th edition, isn't it?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, there was Space Marine Adeptus, Titanicus, that was 1st edition, and they did Space Marine Epic, that was 2nd edition, and then Epic Armageddon, that was 3rd edition.
Okay, is this another edition again? Is it? Oh no, I didn't.
Well, didn't they mess up the rules in 3rd edition pretty bad? A lot of people said they hated 3rd edition.
Oh, the third, which was Epic 40,000.
Yeah.
Oh, I never played. I don't think I ever played Epic 40,000. Okay. And I was so, and I've always, this is one of my favorite little things, is that when they were initially talking about doing Epic 40,000, some bright spark, I think it was one of the top managers, decided, oh, let's put everything on strip bases.
Yeah.
And they said, I said, well, okay, let's get people to come up with some ideas of different ways of basing up Epic models. And I thought, well, actually, round bases would be nice. I mean, I like square bases. And all my models are on square bases because I love them. I thought actually round bases would be nice, but of course, because it was one of the top managers, their idea had to go because you have to keep these people happy.
Yeah.
So as I've always said, well, clearly I didn't like the strip bases because I didn't get my way on the bases that I wanted, and you're absolutely right. I didn't like them. I thought it was, and to be absolutely frank, I thought they looked awful. I don't like them, and I painted up an army because that's what you did. But I never liked it. I don't think I played any. I don't even think I played any of the games.
Do you curious? Do you still have a lot of your old models that you painted up?
Well, Epic stuff.
Well, just in general, like I'll show it later, but like the Chaos Marines that you did, all your Epic stuff, especially that Imperator Titan.
Gone.
Oh, well, that's a bummer.
Gone. Well, it's just it's stuff that I don't know what happened to all of it.
Okay.
To be honest, could have gone in the bin. It could have been given away. It could have been it could have been left in the studio. And anything could have happened to it. I mean, the Imperator Titan, the Abominatus Despoiler of Worlds.
Yep.
I managed to keep him intact for years, and then after a house move, I unpacked him and he was smashed to pieces.
Oh God, that sucks.
And I thought, I can't be asked to try and put this back together because it was not just. It was kind of things were bent and a lot of the other stuff, and it's not like, and I don't quite know how that happened because it's not like someone threw it against a wall or anything. It's just a move.
Yeah, one good smack and
that's all it takes.
Yeah,
and the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yep.
But so after they survived years and years and years, they ended up like
yeah. You put a lot of work into that Imperator.
Oh yeah, he was one of. I mean, the one thing I would say about him though, when I look at photographs of him now, I'm quite critical of my own work. Is that I often this is something else I wanted to bring up as well. Is that often when I look at. I see models and conversions that I did in the past, and I see stuff that say, for example, Ali Morrison did some incredible converted Mordheim. He had a Mordheim gang, which was just to die for. I'd never seen anything like it. It looked amazing. All custom modelled and converted, models and all this kind of thing. And my own stuff was like that too. But the reason it was like that was because we had access to anything we wanted.
Yeah,
we could literally go down into the factory and pick stuff off the racks.
Yeah,
so you could have any model you wanted. You plastic was all, but it was nearly free. You could do so much stuff, and. I remember talking to Ali about it, and Ali said to me, the thing is, it's not very real. If you're a gamer and you don't work for Games Workshop, you can't do that.
Yeah,
you just can't. You can't do it now. I mean, you can do it a little bit. I mean, you can pick up a lot of stuff on a lot of plastic stuff you can get on eBay and stuff, and you can get individual parts and all this stuff, which is fine.
Yeah, I've done that quite a few times. But
really, you buy a box set of miniatures, or at least when I was collecting 28mm stuff, you bought your boxes of miniatures, and you use what was on the sprues.
Yeah.
didn't have there wasn't. If you say, oh, you don't see as much cross converting and things like that, well, there was a reason for that. And that was just that the models were the parts were less available.
Yeah.
And it's certainly something that I found myself when, after a while, I kind of realised, well, I'm doing a lot of these conversions, and some of that, and they look crazy and they look, amazing and all this kind of thing. But if I didn't work for the company, I couldn't do this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the sheer amount of bits that you had on that Imperator Titan was just insane.
Oh, I know. And yet, and actually, I don't know if it actually looked that great. I mean, I think there was some nice stuff on it, and what have you. But I mean, if I did, it's like the way I paint my Chaos stuff now. One of my favourite things I've done with my Chaos armies is that I've painted up the legions, but I've used standard Mark 6 armoured Space Marines, no Chaos guys. I've got some Chaos guys, they're their own little unit, but so if I want to make up the legions, I've used 6mm standard Space Marines, and I've painted them in their heresy colour schemes. Like, for example, the World Eaters have like light grey armour with blue shoulder pads.
Yeah.
It means that I can use them as loyalist tactical troops, or I can knock some models off. Instead of having 18 models, I can take 15, and they're a space. They're a traitor legion, and I've done stuff like that, and I thought, oh crap. And it means that they've got stuff that you can use in multiple different ways.
Yeah.
But it's much more. It's subtle. I'd rather have a Chaos Titan. File off a Warlord, for example. File off his or cut the eagle.
Yeah, the Aquila
on the front. Take that off, and now he's Chaos.
Yep.
And it's easy, and you use a Chaos head or a one of the humanoid-looking heads that you got plastic with the plastic guys, and you use one of those.
Yeah,
and I think it looks better. I think it looks it has more. Again, it's the subtle thing.
Yeah,
and that's just me. But I mean, I love seeing other people do stuff, and I love seeing other people go, "Whoa, I've done this and I've done these amazing things." I love seeing it; it's great. But for me, I much prefer something that's a lot subtle.
Well, it was crazy back in like the 90s, like when Epic, first edition, second edition were in full swing, because you had Games Workshop made all those extra bits for Warlord Titans and Metal. I think they had like 16 head variants. There was all kinds of different weapon variants. It was you could take a plastic Warlord Titan and really make him Imperium or Chaos so easily and so readily. It was really it was a lot of fun. And with your Imperator Titan, you've got the rest of your Chaos army on display. Just the amount of stuff, all the Titan bits for Chaos, I mean, you use the hell out of them, and it just looks so cool because not one Titan is the same.
Yeah, exactly, and that's great. I don't, when it comes to the bright red colour scheme, I'm not sure I particularly like that anymore. I might go black. And but this is the thing. Those models were painted up like they would have been. I probably did him in like 1996, maybe not as late as that. I can't remember. It's a long time ago, and like I said, my personal aesthetic of how I like models to look has changed so much. It's become much more grimdark and much more military in in how I want it to look. And the great thing is you can do that.
Yep.
And it works and it's fine. And And I mean, I'm looking at on your display here, and you've got like Space Marines in blue and red and all this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. You can do that, and they look brilliant. And you know, that's, I wouldn't, but other people do. I don't know.
I've thought about, like, that's the neat thing about painting is, you know, your tastes and your skill changes over time, and the things that you get into change over time. I mean, like you're a musician, you're a drummer, and I'm sure that the stuff you play now is a lot different than the stuff you played in the '90s when you were in different bands.
Very much.
But like I've thought about trying like the modern grimdark style, like the heavy metal style, like the more muted colors and the super fine edge highlighting and stuff like that. But like I'll do one, and that's probably the only one I'm going to do, because I'm just so into my painting style that I've been working on for 30 years. And now I'm finally like, I'm starting to evolve it more. Seeing the amazing thing is seeing 90s Grim Bright being evolved by painters. The biggest one that comes to mind is like Goblin Green Will. The guy is phenomenally good at Grim Bright. And like I'm with one of the pieces I'm going to do for Las Vegas Open for the painting challenge. It's one of the modern Blood Angel. It's the chaplain with a jump pack. I forgot, he's got an actual name, but I don't paint my chaplains and librarians in black and blue. I paint them in chapter colors, and then their shoulder pads will get black or blue on the actual pauldron. But that's very Rogue Trader. And
but that's completely legitimate.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, not. I always find it fascinating how it's like, you know, that, you know, you have to paint up something like this. Actually, you don't. It's like, you know, what can happen. I mean, this is one of the fun things I always find fascinating about Space Marines. When I wrote the How to Paint Space Marine book, is that the you know, chapter colours and the way a chapter looks can change if it gets a new lord.
Yeah,
because a new lord can come in and say, well, actually, I want to wipe the slate clean. Can we clean off any liturgy, anything at all? I just want everyone to go back to standard uniforms, please. You know, and of course,
right, boss.
We'll do that. Right, boss. Then that happens, and you can, and you know, I've decided, I want all my vehicles to be Codex Grey. You could do that. He's entirely within his rights. The other thing is, of course, is then you've got company commanders who can do that. Who can make those kind of decisions, and, you know, so, I want all our guns red. Fine. I want all our guns black, blue, whatever, you know, and there's so much freedom to be able to make your, you know, to make your army your own. And, you know, and you can, it's like, I always quite like the idea of Space Marines being kind of either, you know, maybe entirely metal coloured, but then you use the shoulder pad. That is where you see your chapter colour. Yeah. And the other thing is when you, which I've done with my own epic models, is that everything's Agaros dunes, and then you paint shoulder pad, the chapter colour, and something like, and it's just another approach.
Well, it's cool that you're explaining this, because I was looking through your models, and like I was curious as to why you were painting them in the certain colors that you were, and I'm actually glad that you explained it, and like where your influence is actually coming from in the way that you're painting the Titans, the vehicles, the infantry, everything. Now it makes a lot of sense, and that's actually a really interesting take to bring to the table for painting with.
Well, I think, and the thing is that I'm not saying that everyone needs to do it like this. I think it's nice that people have the opportunity to do it. However, you know, it's like my bases are always brown. And they've been bestial brown for, you know, since probably about probably for about 25 years. I mean, as soon as the idea, they don't have to be green then. Oh, thank goodness for that. I never liked the green base.
Oh, I'm in the same boat with you. Like, I catch hell a lot of times from people on like Reddit and Facebook. They're like, "Oh, that's a great Oldhammer looking Grim Bright model you got there, but why didn't you do the base Goblin Green?" It's like, because I hate Goblin Green bases. That's just my preference. I've done like 3 or 4 models with Goblin Green bases, and that's it. I like my terracotta rim with my old Games Workshop flock.
Yeah. Now the thing is that I'll give a shout out to him now, but Josh, who runs Crown of Command, who's become a really. I mean, the nice thing is I'm feeling like you're becoming a really good mate now, and it's like, he really likes to act for his models to have the original look that models had back in the day. So Goblin Green bases, the way that, particularly the epic, we'll think of the epic stuff, everything, and it really is painted and it looks just like the photographs of the armies in the White Dwarf. And that's brilliant.
Yeah, if that's your jam, I mean, absolutely go for it.
It's jam. Go, absolutely, and that's absolutely wonderful. I love it.
Well, there's been an on-running discussion / theme in a lot of my shows with different guests, is that, and it started with my 3rd episode, my buddy here in town, Dork Depot. There's a whole segment. There's no right way of doing any of this. And that's what makes it fun. Like, these are like our little army men. We're going to paint them how we want. There is no doctrine that specifically states you have to do it this way. And like, going back to the librarian and chaplain thing, I posted both my Rogue Trader era Terminators librarian. I did a librarian and I did a psyker. It was the pointy finger guy. Anyway, I posted on Reddit. And I caught hell. It's like, well, why is he not blue? Why is your Psyker a Blood Angel? It's like, because that's what I wanted to paint him as. And there was some old school guys that jumped in and like, obviously you kids have never played Rogue Trader, because back then it didn't matter. Like, you could have Psykers in your space. You could have chapter Psykers. You could have chapter Inquisitors. You could have the librarians and the chaplains were not established as black and blue yet. And also, it's his models. If you want to do yours in black and yet blue, then go do them in black and blue, but those are his models. Stop.
He does what he likes, and I kind of agree. Really, I kind of agree. I mean, of course I agree. That's exactly how it should be.
Well, my gal, she has an excellent line.
Gatekeepers.
My gal has an excellent line for, like, when I tell her about this stuff, and I've thought about repeating it, but I just don't feel like getting into it with people, because I got better things to do. But it's like, okay, you're complaining about my model. Where's yours?
Well, and there is that. I mean, it's like I have this thing, because not just recently, but for a long time, I would post up clips of me playing drums on. And
oh, dude, like, I've watched a bunch of those. You're good. Like, your improvisation and your technical level, you are amazing.
Thank you very much for saying that. But it's an interesting one, because every now and again some smart ass will pop up and we'll kind of go, "Oh, yeah, you'll never be as good as Jeff Picaro. You'll never be. This is crap. You're bollocks." All this kind of stuff. And well, number one, where's my finger going? I can't get this shot.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Number one, you reduce my left hand. Number one, get stuffed. Number two, you're and the thing is that you, and this is an interesting thing, and I think it's my journey.
Yeah,
and it's like you look at from when I look at myself when I kind of came into games where when I started collecting and collecting models back in the day. It's been a journey.
Oh yeah.
And my ideas have developed, and I've changed my mind. I've done things, and I've gone, what? That was wrong. It's wrong to do that. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel right now. My attitude. Sometimes, literally, my attitude was wrong. my attitude to people was wrong.
Yeah.
My attitude to gaming was wrong, and a lot, not that much, thank goodness. But I'm very much a journey. I'm a journeyman, and I'm a journeyman musician, and I'm a journeyman modeler, a journeyman painter, hopefully a journeyman gamer when I get to play some games again. But it's all about, you're on a journey, and life, and I think life's a journey, and and you're what you like and what you appreciate when you're 28 is very different when you're 60, as I am now, and my thinking's different, my attitude's different, my priorities are different. It's like, for example, I used to play in bands that were originals bands and played all original material and used your own drum parts up and all this kind of thing. I now play in a band with my wife as the lead singer. We play cover songs that I'm trying to find my way of playing them. Taking my lead from the original songs, but then doing it with taking my own spin on it. And, and very much the other guys who I work with in my band, we take the same approach. But you see how everything I've said to do with being in a band is exactly the same as being a gamer and being a modeler, and you can look at what was in White Dwarf and emulate it and find your own way. And it's the same thing, and I love it. I love the fact that life's like that. I've bumped into people who are I haven't seen in years and stuff like that. I'll bump into them here every now and then, just different scenes and whatnot, where they're still kind of stuck in the same thing that they've been into for so long. And to me, like, I have a hard time with that, because I want to, as a human being, especially now that I'm 43, I want to grow, evolve, and change. It's like, I've brought it up a couple of times. The episodes haven't come out, but like, I'm trying to sell my business. And it's just because I don't have any desire to do it anymore. It does not bring me an ounce of happiness to do. It just brings me a lot of anxiety and a lot of like lost sleep. And getting back into painting, it was like, something just went in my head. It's like, no, I want to spend like another 10, 15 years doing this as my career. I want to figure out how to monetize this. I want to have fun with it. I want to encourage people, but it's an evolution of like getting out of one thing that I was into for 20 odd years and just started getting away from it and found something that I hadn't been into for 12, 13 years. And it had evolved, grown, and changed, but it had just gotten so much better. And, you talk about ups and downs and changing who you are as a person, evolving as a person. And yeah, that's very important. But like, I bump into what I was originally saying was I bump into people who are just kind of still stuck in their thing. And it seems like there's just a lot missing from their life. But if that's their jam, if that's their groove, hey, that's cool. But for me personally, it's like exactly what you said. No, like, your perception, your vision of the things that you're into change. Your attitude changes. The way you deal with troubles changes. The lessons that you learn, if you're smart enough to learn from those lessons, they will change you and help you grow and evolve. Yeah. Okay, so we chatted a bunch and went off topic like we always do, and that's the best part of this show. So, actually going through all your questions, let's actually jump into your Instagram stuff. And a lot of this I had to take photos of today and edit in Photoshop and make work for Instagram properly. So let me bring up my Interact. Nope. Why am I? Oh, wait a minute. Instagram. There we go. Interact. Okay, there we go. So this old Ork Warlord came from a small article about Adrian the Grand Warlord Wood. I always think Grand Warlords, and I was titled Grand Warlord by Ian Pickstock, who worked with us for a while.
Oh, okay.
The funny thing is Grand Warlord is a squat title.
Oh, really?
You have squat Grand Warlords. I've only just twigged onto this just recently, actually, when I was looking through through the squat warlords book. I went, oh, hang on a sec. A grand warlord is a squat warlord. It's actually not an orc warlord, but hey, it's fine. But anyway, yeah, him. He's a Ghazghkull. He's a Ghazghkull model.
Yep.
With I can't remember because I can't remember what's been converted on him. I can't remember if that sword's different. I mean, certainly that claw is off I chopped the front off the gun, and that claw is off a gargant. It's a gargant claw.
Oh, okay.
But I can't remember if the horn or the sword are on the original Ghazghkull model or not.
The sword is, but it looks like you actually cut the arm and tilted it forward. And the horns look like those are different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure I would do that now because because holding if you actually see tipping it back would have been better, but tipping it forward is a bit weird. I don't think it looks particularly good. The horns, I don't know if they're off like it might have been off a Lamassu or something or some kind of chaos head or some other such. I can't actually remember now. Mm-hmm. But oh gosh, he's a proper blast from the past. He is.
Yeah, I was digging pretty hard to find stuff that was yours that I really dug. This guy this always stood out just because, like, for our Newhammer, for people who are for Newhammer kids, this was a solid metal model. Doing this kind of conversion work was not easy.
Oh, yeah. Oh no, it really was. I mean, you needed a hacksaw. You needed, everything needed to be pinned. It's like, oh God. I mean, I look back on it and I really do think to myself, how did I ever do anything like anything? But you were determined, Did you guys have green stuff back then, or was it milliput? We used greens. We did use green stuff. We didn't use milliput. It was too. Just is not great to work with. If we did anything at all, I took my lead a little bit from John Blanche. John Blanche always used to say that if there was a hole, you didn't fill it with milliput, you covered it with a bit of miniature. He always said that. And in fact, that does work a lot better. You get something that's a lot nicer. But yes, if we did do any filling, it was we usually used.
Was it actual like Games Workshop green stuff, or was it just 2-part putty?
I think it would be proper green stuff.
Yeah, it seems like you guys had a lot of stuff like in the UK that we didn't get here in the US until much later, because I never saw green stuff at any of the stores that carried Games Workshop models here in Vegas until when I got kind of back into it out of high school in like 2002, 2003. I saw green modeling putty green stuff. I was like, oh my God, we finally get this. And I'd always wondered, like in the 90s, if you guys actually had green stuff at GW.
Oh yeah. They were building miniatures from it, so there was green stuff all around.
Oh, hang on. Yeah. I have a really good question I've been meaning to ask. Maybe you know the answer to this. Who the hell made the matte clear coat in the 2000s for GW?
Who made the matte clear coat?
Yeah, they subbed that out to somebody else.
I've no idea.
Because I'm really mad at Games Workshop for whoever made that stuff can fall down some stairs. Because the old matte clear coat, like all my competition models that I painted up in the mid to late 2000s, they've all yellowed. And like my entire second edition Space Wolf army that I painted up in the mid 2000s yellowed.
I mean, the thing is, generally speaking, I can't remember the last time I mean, the thing is, when you use plastic models, paint doesn't chip off them. Or at least I don't with my stuff. Your paint doesn't come off. Mm-hmm. Whereas with the metal stuff, all you had to do was pick it up and you'd rub a piece of paint off. So as I generally became more and more of a plastic snob, where everything, I wouldn't even have a model if it wasn't, if it wasn't plastic. I've never had to worry about varnishing or anything not for decades.
Well, like everything I've always clear coated my models, and when I was younger, in the 90s, when I got into painting, before I discovered matte clear coat that I'd always wanted, I used Raw Partha's primer and their gloss clear. And I've got models from when I was a kid that are still in Raw Partha gloss clear, and they look exactly like the day I sprayed them. So whatever formulation they put in that matte clear varnish can, I want to find out. What's up?
Was probably cheap.
Yeah.
Was probably done cheap. And they probably got someone who did them a deal, and they stuck a logo on it and then charged you a ridiculous amount of money for it.
Yeah, I want to find out whoever made that decision and just leave a flaming bag of dog poop on their doorstep. I'm so irritated. Because I did a squad of Deathwing Terminators that were like box art perfect, and they're yellowed now. They just look like crap. It's like, wow, I spent like 3 months painting those.
And there's nothing you can do about that.
Just strip them and repaint them.
Oh, right. Okay.
I really don't want to. Just not in that phase. Yeah. Like one of my best friend that I grew up painting with, he's like, dude, you need to do some more Deathwing Terminators. You're like, you were amazing at that. I'm like, I just don't want to paint any Dark Angels. I want to paint more Mentor Legion. Yes. So we were going on earlier on and on about this Imperator Titan. This was I didn't want to post every single one of them, but this was your in progress, ready for paint picture. And we were talking about all the bits, and just assembly of that thing is insane.
I mean, it's once again, it's actually having access to the to those parts, which is just like you just don't get access to parts like that anymore. Yeah. And I mean, if I was going to make him again, I would probably go for something much simpler, and use it based on the color scheme and stuff. But I mean, once again, it was I had the time, I had the opportunity, I had the parts, and when you've got all of that, you kind of go crazy, really. But the inspiration was from a piece of John Blanche artwork.
I knew you were going to say John Blanche. I know the picture you're talking about.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just stunning. I remember seeing the first picture of that crazy beast, and I just thought, ooh, I like that. And so it was all like inspired by him.
How long did it take you to build that?
Oh, no idea. I mean, it wouldn't have been fast, and it was assembled in pieces. I mean, I would have done the legs would have been separate, the arms and the body would have been separate, and those big sidey kind of army things that stick up at the top would have all been separate as well.
Yeah, those are off Warlord Titans.
Yeah, that's right. They are. They're all Warlord Titan bits.
And I think the fist you have covering the gun is the power fist from the Titan too.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, that idea of using close combat weapons and sticking them on top of the Titan, kind of zipping it over the top like that. I think that's quite cute. I quite like that.
I like how you have a sneaky beaky chainsaw attachment for a bolter right in his crotch.
Oh gosh, did I?
That's awesome. I never noticed that detail until now, so that's pretty cool. That's really neat. I'm gonna have to go back through and like look at this article again. I was, like I said, I spent an hour today digging through my old White Dwarfs, finding all the stuff that you did, and it was actually really nostalgic because there was a lot of memories that came flooding back to me from my painting bestie that I grew up with. Just so many memories of him and I dicking around doing stupid things, painting models, and like new issue White Dwarf come out, we'd dig through it, and he was a big fan of your stuff as well. And it just got to be a lot of fun in the mid to late 90s, like when you guys just got to go full ham with a lot of this stuff. And like what I was saying earlier, that era of Fat Dwarf was like, you finally got, like, they were showing everybody who worked there got to show off their models in White Dwarf, which was a complete change from the previous generation, where it was heavy metal painted models only. That's it.
Yeah. I think they kind of had to, really, because if they wanted to fill the pages with the pages up with stuff, there simply wasn't enough stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, is that really true? I don't know. Anyway,
no, that's your Chaos Horde, isn't it?
Yeah.
So those all the Chaos miniatures down at the bottom in front of the Titans, that's not Studio Army, that's yours.
That's fine. I think. And
all those Liberator, all those Warlord Titans, those things, that's nuts. And you've got a couple of Reavers in there too.
Oh yeah, they're definitely all mine. Definitely all mine. But gosh.
Do you have any idea? Like, do you remember how long it took you to do this whole army?
No idea. Again, the thing is, it would have. I'd have tackled each model individually. It was great. Just loved them. Great.
Kind of sucks you don't have any of these anymore.
Yes, it does really. But it's one of those things. It's just like, gosh, what a beast.
Yeah.
Painting wise, it's really all flat colours and washes.
Yeah.
And a bit of highlighting, really.
Well, that was one thing I really always enjoyed about your models, and there's like a couple that we'll talk about further down, but like your Grim Bright style of painting back then was just, I really liked it because of like, it really went against the grain of what, the studio staff was having to do. And it was always just so bright and vivid. And it was always just such a joy to see your models pop up. Like, I mean, hell, let's these guys, your old Chaos guys. I sent you pictures of the ones, the skeleton guy, the Nurgle guy, right at the top in the center. I did a whole squad of Chaos Nurgle Marines based on that because of that one model that you did.
Well then it was worthwhile doing. That's good. The interesting thing is when you look at my stuff, there's always a very strong color scheme, and I became very influenced by the idea of using what they call limited palettes of colors. So you don't because a lot of stuff in White Dwarf, particularly in the early days, was like an explosion in the paint factory.
Mm-hmm.
And there were lots of, it was, I mean, they were often very detailed models, but they were also had, there were opportunities for you to like paint pouches and lots of different colours and this, that, and the other. But actually, I really like to I began to limit my palette of colours more and more as time went on.
Yeah, it's not a bad method to do. The way I keep a lot of my miniatures as bright as they are and as recognizable as they are is that limited palette. Like that sneaky beaky that's right below my head. I think with the tutorial video I did for the RTB 15 Mark 7 in Blood Angel, I think I used a total of 12 or 14 colors, and a couple of like Nuln oil and the black contrast. Those were mixed with water, so that, I mean, technically that's one color. The yellows that I do are just, I undercoat in Pro Acryl Bright Ivory to keep that nice warmth to the yellow. Throw aerial yellow over it. Panel line everything with some orange contrast paint. Recoat in Pro Acryl for the spillover, and then just highlight up aerial yellow with Bright Ivory just to keep it really simple. It's not like we were talking about earlier. It's not the the 7 different colors of yellow. It's the stepping system that they have now. It's like, no, it's just 2 colors. That's it. Yep. And just keep it, like the thing as wild and, no pun intended, as wild and chaotic as these models are through your various conversions and all the bits you've added, you can tell each one is a cohesive unit because of your limited color palette, and that looks really good.
It's very much something I really liked. Some of the colour choices are a bit. I sometimes look and I think are a bit questionable, but then that's fine. You know, that's just colour choices. But
yeah.
now, but they look now. It's I'd forgotten all about those, to be honest. But it was nice when. Oh, those. Oh, yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, I'm very fond of these models, especially the Nurgle ones. Nurgle and Night Lords are my two favorite Chaos Legions. And,
Nurgle's just great.
Yeah, Nurgle you can just kind of go nuts with, because I mean, just rot and decay and bloating and whatever looks creepy. And I like how on the skeleton in the center you actually use like some kind of like like tiny like little rocks. I can't think of the word. And then like basically the way I figured out to do was just use a ton of super glue or a ton of Elmer's glue and drop, you know, tiny little texture on it and just keep building it up, and then, you know, and then paint over it, and it creates just this really gross looking texture that's very Nurgle-y.
I mean, if I remember correctly, that was just sand.
Oh, thank you. Sand. I know there's a technical term for it, but yeah, it was sand.
Yeah, it's just sand, and it's like, and it was almost to imitate moss.
Yeah. The
idea was like, I'd got this idea in my head of, I've no idea where from, but to actually have like these creatures, that these space marines that were just covered in a layer of moss, really, and that's part of where it came from.
And I like how you have the little Nurglings on the backpacks. I'm actually. Did you ever paint up one of the sassy Nurglings?
Sassy Nurglings.
It's a newer model. It's a little guy that goes on a base, and he's actually. Did you ever play Bolt Gun?
No.
Oh well, Sassy Nurgling's in that. Sassy Nurgling is basically like Louise Rogue Hobbies. It's like her little character, her little icon for. It's like her favorite little guy. But yeah, he's a relatively new one. I'll send you a picture of him. I'd be very curious to see how you'd paint him now. But yeah, he's standing there. He has like half a mask on. He's just standing there. He looks all sassy, and that's why he's called Sassy Nurgling.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll send that through and I'll have a look at it. I'm sure it'll look great.
And in my curiosity, because I remember these old colors very well, do you actually happen to remember your formula for the red that you'd use on your Khorne models?
Well, it was probably just like Blood Angels red or something like that. It wouldn't have been a formula or anything. It would just have been a simple colour, and then I would have applied a wash over the top.
Okay.
Or did I? I mean, it's a funny one. It's a funny one, really, because unfortunately, I love the idea of washes or ink washes or whatever you want to call them. The idea of them, but if you applied them, everything looked shiny, and that wasn't necessarily the kind of. And certainly in the case of the red, I may very well have done that and then put like a brown ink wash or something to give it some depth.
Okay,
maybe. But generally speaking, and it wouldn't matter because they were Space Marines. It wouldn't actually matter that they were shiny particularly.
Yeah.
But I tended to. One of the things I started to do was I started to do washes using actual paint, and I would water down paint, and I would use that to create my washes. And it's interesting that later on, then you had first the things like Nuln oil and stuff, which was like a very very matte wash, but then turned into the contrast paints, which I just love, which is in a lot of ways is I was experimenting with painting models using paint, undercoating them white, and then using ink washes to actually paint them up to get that kind of. So when they actually brought out contrast paints, I thought, yeah, we're thinking along similar lines.
We were talking off camera, and how I said it's an absolute honor to talk to you, and it's been kind of a childhood dream. Like this particular set of models, like I have always wanted to ask you so many questions about how you did so many things on this, how you painted them. I remember like when they came out in the issue of White Dwarf, I'm like, oh my god, these things are so cool. because they were just so different than anything, like I said, that Heavy Metal would do for studio models, because they had to follow a strict guideline where you always went full ham on just going nuts.
And it's nice actually because once again, it was actually having access to
all the bits,
access to parts. It's just access to parts, and that's one of the biggest things with stuff like this. Now, that's not to say that you can't do that these days, and it's certainly easier to do stuff like that because a lot of stuff is available in plastic. But it's. And I've talked about this with a little bit with Jonny Watson, is that because he said, I wouldn't know where to start. And the thing is that I tried to say to him, the trick is to look at a part as a shape. So and not as what it was originally, but look at it as a shape and then go, actually, I can make this shape into something else. It's like, for example, I converted some epic plastic rhinos and made them into vindicators.
Oh, nice.
And what I used was the gun sights, Ork gun sights, as like a cupola thing, and then I used. You could get smoke launchers, and drilled into the smoke launchers, and those used those to make the gun barrels.
Okay.
And you look at them, and nobody's picked up on this. I really like your converted.
Are those on your Instagram?
Yeah, they should be somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll go poking through it when we get done.
Have a look. They are quite funny because it's just about looking at them and kind of going, it's a shape. It's not a smoke launcher. It's not a gun sight. It's a shape, and it's the shape I need to do whatever you want. And a lot of that is actually being familiar with plastic sprues.
Yeah.
And I mean, fortunately, there are often photographs of plastic sprues you can look at and start to look through parts. I mean, eBay is great for for selling. You can literally just troll through parts and look at and kind of go, oh, that looks like that could be something. That looks like that could be something.
Well, I did a diorama. I don't know if you saw it or not. I did a diorama of five metal gobos and two modern plastic commando orcs. One was the sniper orc, and the other one's the commando gobo. I did a diorama of that for my gal's Christmas present last year, and the commando gobo that I did, he was missing he has a little hook gun, and the eBay seller forgot to include the other side of his hook, so I cut off the hook of the barrel, or cut off the hook on the front of the gun, and put an old Imperial Guard las rifle barrel there. Ooh, and then the compression chamber, the CO2 chamber at the bottom, I put a Chaos bolt pistol barrel on that, trimmed off any of the rope, and made it like a little las cannon with a little, like, I don't know, shotgun or flamethrower at the bottom. Just because you're talking about, like, I as soon as I cut it off, I'm like, what could I use on this? You know what? That's about the size of an Imperial Guard las rifle barrel. Cut it off, stuck it on. I was like, oh, it works. Okay, glue. That's staying on there.
Yeah, stuff like that. It's great.
I mean, I've got so many of those old las rifles. It's nuts. I don't even know where I got them from.
Sometimes necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah,
and it's really true. It really is.
And we were talking earlier about your orc horde that you painted up for third edition epic scale.
Well, see, that was kind of inspired by the interesting thing about it is it was actually inspired by the actual orc army that I was using at the time. Mm-hmm. So I was like, the color schemes and stuff were very much based on that. So that was interesting. I mean, from that point of view, like I said, I never did anything with it. I mean, looking at it now, I kind of think, never did anything with these models at all. You didn't game with them. You didn't do a thing. And yet, that's exactly what they were based on. They were based on my existing Ork army at the time.
I noticed one detail today when I was cropping these out in Photoshop that I never noticed before. I like how you put the Weird Boy on top of the tank tower.
Oh yes, that Weird Boy model's gorgeous. What I've used Weird Boy models for now is I use them as knobs for my snake bites.
Mm-hmm.
That because they have that kind of wild look, so they have the knobs for the snake bites, and they're absolutely lovely model. Really, I hadn't noticed him actually, but it's beautiful. Just a lovely little thing.
Yeah, I completely glossed over it back in the day, and like I said, I was cropping it out. I got really close to it. Photoshop. I was like, "Oh, that's just awesome! That is such a great little detail."
He's lovely, and of course that lies the round plastic base just sits on there perfectly. It's just like, yep, that's just cool.
Just showing different sides of the stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the old epic scale stuff was it was so creative. I mean, some of it was not in scale whatsoever. Like the Carnifex the epic scale Carnifex that I painted that was on the previous screen. Yeah, he's giant compared to the Space Marines. And when I posted him, people were like, "Oh my God, that is such a great 40K Carnifex." I'm like, "No, that's an epic scale Carnifex. It's the size of a Marine, like a normal 28mm Marine."
Well, the interesting thing is that when you actually look at the sizes of tank models and buildings and stuff like that, is they're never to scale, because if you did a true scale building, it'd be enormous.
Yeah,
they're just so big. So everything is like the tanks and stuff. Everything is actually a lot smaller than it would ever be in real life. A rhino would never get 10 guys in it because it's just too small.
Well, at least with modern epic scale, it's all to scale, because they're just taking, basically they're measuring it against what they have in 3D and actually scaling it down to 1/4 scale.
Okay.
So it's to me, there's just there's something about it's because I guess it's what I grew up with. There's something about old epic scale that really just still has a place in my heart, and a lot of people who are into Oldhammer, who grew up in that era, still have that special place in their heart for epic scale, because it was fun. Nothing was like absolutely perfect, and it was such a neat thing. It was actually one debate I was getting into with somebody was like, it's the guy who runs the Warhammer store here in town, absolutely great guy, but we were talking about epic scale one night, and I was like, they're gonna have to bring in orcs and Eldar and stuff, because I get the modern epic. I don't know what it's called. The modern epic is supposed to be the Horus Heresy era exclusively, but you can only have so many games of Space Marines versus Space Marines, or Space Marines versus Imperial Guard, and it's just going to get boring. And eventually, it's going to go full circle, like with what epic started out as Space Marine Adeptus Titanicus during Horus Heresy. And then they started introducing orcs and Eldar and the Gene Stealers and Chaos, and expanding out to the whole range and moving it from just Horus Heresy to the 41st millennium.
I mean, who knows what they'll do? I mean, they might do it, they might not.
Yeah.
Like I said, who knows?
In this, you and your pictures.
He still got it. But that's a choice. I have my hair's great. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a choice.
Aren't we all?
Oh yeah. But yeah, it was. Difficult to speed.
And now we can actually dive into this. Oh, this was the first issue of Fat Dwarf. Oh yeah, the dwarf just got fatter.
Gosh, look at that.
What's that?
Gosh, look at that.
Yeah.
Well, it's a nice piece of art actually to go on the front.
Mark Gibbons did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a signature. It's on the block right there.
Yeah. Gosh, look at that.
But yeah, this tome.
Yeah.
Now you authored this, didn't you?
Yes, I did. It's an interesting one, really, because it's like one of the jobs I ended up moving into was the hobby department, and the hobby department was really fun for a while, and until it all went a bit sour, as often things do. But we'd already done the How to Paint Stud Miniatures book. We did another book called How to Make War Games Terrain, which was a brilliant book, and I learned a lot about gaming tables and how you could get the best gaming tables that look really good. But this was How to Paint Space Marines. Was just like, it was one of these things where, we sell a lot of these things. We ought to really do a book. And one thing you'll notice if you look at the way the miniatures are photographed, and we were talking about photographing them from a certain angle earlier on, you'll see that they are photographs, so the bases are absolutely flat.
Yeah.
The idea was that we were going to try and carry that over into White Dwarf promotions and things like that, but they never quite understood it, so they never quite did it. But this I had the pleasure of sitting down and producing what they call the white book of this book, which is what you do is you literally have a book and of white pages, and you go through it and you literally draw everything that's going to be on those pages, outlines, all this kind of thing. So you can then say, right, well, we're going to need to have we need to look to see what we've got and what we don't have, and then get the things we don't have painted up. Things like, and then like say, we need to have a rhino that we can photograph all the way around properly. We need, as you can see on here, and then you need, a description of what the Blood Angels are like, and how the heraldry works, and all this kind of thing. And I had to name each individual Space Marine, which meant like going into naming, like finding books of sort of like names of Romans and various different German names, all these different names that kind of work with the different armies that we were presenting. So everybody needed an individual name.
Yeah.
Well, that was really good fun to do. Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of a callback to like Rogue Trader era, where like all the Space Marines actually had names on their base, like on the slots.
Oh yeah, yeah. But she came with all the different names and stuff. Oh yeah, and funnily enough, here you've got like these guys. The Space Wolves are an interesting one, because people often like look at Space Wolves and think that all Space Marines go in for that level of personalization on their armor. And one thing we talked about was actually these guys need to be the absolute exception.
Oh yeah,
so no one else does this. I think the closest is the Black Templars, who might have extra stuff. But generally speaking, a Space Marine is a Space Marine is a Space Marine, and is differentiated by his colour schemes. So, and these guys were meant to be the an army that was totally non-codex, and that meant that they really were completely unique.
Yeah, I've always had an affinity for the Space Wolves. That was I got into the game because of Ultramarines, like most people do. But going forward, I just like a couple years into it, I really started to really like the Space Wolves, and to this day, they're still my favorite chapter. Just because they're so like anti-establishment.
Oh yeah.
and you can have a lot of fun with them. My only gripe about Space Wolves is I don't like the blue-gray armor scheme that has been in use forever. Like, if you've noticed the way I paint mine from what we used to call Space Wolves gray all the way up to white, basically. Yeah, you remember Kim Cyberg?
Yeah.
And those god tier Space Wolves that he painted. Yeah, it took me 20 years to figure out like how to paint like that. But I like going from Space Wolves gray, which is an icy blue color, all the way up to a pure white, because to me, like in the snow, that would give them more camouflage.
Yeah. No, it's once again you can paint them. I mean, I really like Space Wolves to have like Codex grey armor. I actually really like that. I mean, the blue grey's nice, but I much prefer the flat grey armor. I think it looks really cool.
Oh, the Horus Heresy style armor.
Oh yeah, very much. Yeah, very much so.
Or rather, Horus Heresy colored armor.
Yeah, I really like that. It's really nice.
I thought about because of Loken in the book series. I actually thought about painting up some lunar wolves.
Yeah,
just because I really dug the lore around the lunar wolves and how, like, even after Horus took over and like declared war, like there was a bunch of lunar wolves, or there was a bunch of sons of Horus that actually went back, including Loken, that went back to being lunar wolves and fought with the loyalists. So
I always find that fascinating that you might have pockets of traitor chapters who didn't go over.
Yeah.
And it's like you kind of think, yeah, that sounds entirely like a lot of the. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Horus Heresy book series. I mean, I typeset and designed enough of the books, for heaven's sake.
Oh, really?
We worked in Black Library for a while, or for a long time. Actually, probably the longest I worked in any department. Actually, absolutely loved it. But they, all the Horus Heresy color schemes are always really nice. So.
Yeah, since you were wow. My voice just broke. Like, given how Oldhammer you are, like, what do you think in modern times of just the amount of expansion of lore that's happened over the last 30 years, like especially like the Black Library? And
I think Black Library. I mean, I loved my time in Black Library. It was because it was a part of Games Workshop that actually treated its staff as professionals for the most part, and had great. George Mann was an absolutely fantastic boss. I always thought he was great, and I think it's good that you can that the law can be expanded. It's a great thing.
What the hell was I going to say? I've thought about it numerous times, like how much clarity and how much detail has been brought to the lore and the history of 40K just through the Black Library book series, like compared to what we had in the 90s, where lore was fairly short. And very open to interpretation in certain ways, and it's interesting to hear modern Hammer, Newhammer kids like using all the modern terms for referring to like armies and different things like that. Versus like when I talk, I still call them Imperial Guard or Eldar or Dark Eldar. It's like watching the expressions on some Newhammer kids' faces when I say like Eldar, they're like, no, they're called Eldari. I'm like, you say that again, I'll start calling whatever the squats are now, I'll start calling them Space Dwarves. Because the original thing was Space Dwarves, Space Elves, Space Marines, Space Orcs.
Which is exactly what they were.
And I brought this page up just because it's got my boys on there. It's got the Mentor Legion.
Oh, nice.
It sucks. The Games Workshop never really did anything with Mentor Legion. I thought they were such a great chapter.
But that means you can do yours, which is the best bit.
Well, I meant more like lore wise.
Oh well, once again, you get to do your own.
Yeah. Well, there's only a handful of chapters that actually know where the Mentor's planet is in the universe, and they're like super secretive.
Oh yeah,
get off my doorstep.
Probably because they don't know.
Yeah,
undoubtedly because they don't know.
It's usually like when I do a Mentor Legion mini here and there. Like I reinterpreted the Rogue Trader era badge, the old owl. I did not like how it was. I didn't like how it was orange and yellow, so I made it like the two different greens I highlight or I base coat and highlight with on the armor, just to make it more, I don't know, aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, when I post my Mentor Legions, people are like, "What is that?" It's a Mentor Legion. Who is that? It's a chapter of Space Marines. It's been around since Rogue Trader.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Louise's obsession with the Rainbow Warriors. There's like 3 art pieces of art of them, and that's it.
Yes, the Rainbow Warriors. Yes.
So we'll go ahead. Like you mentioned, you've actually got to go do stuff. So actually, we'll switch back over to this and just wrap it up for the night. I asked you. I'm presenting this to my guests well before they come on the show now, just because of my last guest. He was taken a little back by this. Is there anybody you would like to give shout outs to, sir?
Okay, I would like to I'll give it a shout out to Josh at the Crown of Command, and he approached me to do an interview a good couple of years back, and I said no because I really wasn't in a place to want to discuss anything to do with my time at Games Workshop. A year later, I was approached by Film Deg Miniatures, who I also give a shout out to, and they do some very, very interesting stuff. And but when he asked me to do it, and I thought, oh yeah, actually, I might want to talk about this now. I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I should really speak to Josh first and see if he would like to do it again. And we did, and we've done loads of stuff. Talked about Epic, his splatter natters that he has. Check that out. See if you want to get involved in that. Okay. All that happens is you set up. I just set my phone up and facing myself, and then they a bit like this. They have you all around on a screen, and you just talk to each other about what you're working on, about what you do, and about what you like and what you don't like, and all this kind of stuff. And and they'll take questions from people who come in on it. It's a live stream, and all of that kind of stuff. And I've really enjoyed doing those too. I'd like to shout out to Jonny Watson, who I'm hopefully going to be playing my first Epic game in 20 years, and it'll be on the 9th of May. We're quite looking forward to that.
I hope you have a blast with that.
I hope so too, and I'm hoping he's a nice guy to game with. I suspect he is. We've been joking about it because I'm quite picky about who I game with, or I have been very picky about who I game with in the past. Unfortunately, White Dwarf had a tendency to anyone who was a complete dick, who no one else wanted to fight. They go, "Oh, so sorry, we'll just get him to play AD," and I didn't cotton on for the longest time, and then finally I went, I see what you're doing. And then after that, I just said, you do realise I'm never going to do a battle report for you ever again. No, we'll change it. We won't do that. So, too late. Sorry. I never did one again. Oh. So I'm normally very picky about who I play against, but John seems a nice guy, so we're looking forward to doing that. Also, John Wombat of Wombat Games. I've done an interview in one of his magazines, which has been really, really good to actually kind of to talk about that. And also, my final shout out I'd like to make for you.
Oh,
because
thank you.
It's been really, it's getting to know you through your messages and your ideas and stuff. And some of it I understand and some of it I don't. it's fine, you know, and that's okay. I'm sure it works both ways. But it's been, and this has been brilliant to actually talk to you, like, and actually talk to you face to face about some of this stuff. And it's been really good fun. And if you want to do anything like this again, after you've had a few more people, go for it. I'll be up for it. No problem at all.
No, it was an absolute honor that you came on. Like I said during the show, you are one of my favorite people in White Dwarf, and you know, being a teenager, you know, it was influential, and it's been an absolute honor just to sit here and talk to you for nearly 3 hours and like get to pick your brain and talk about old stuff.
And now you met me, and you know what a complete monster I
am. Not really, but...
I've been working so hard on that. I'm trying to come the world's worst person, and failed again.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up. Let me switch over to my ending screen. I got to pay attention to the time. Okay, so thank you, Adie, for coming on. And if you guys want to check out any more of my podcasts or my Blood Angel painting tutorial, here's 2 links to each. And until the next podcast, I will talk to you guys in a bit. Take it easy.